Hey guys, welcome to Solo React Talk. Tonight I'm going to be reacting to a video requested by Wilfred Clarity. It's called Story of League of Legends, explained by the YouTuber Necrit. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. Necrit. Necrit. Hopefully. If I'm saying it wrong, please forgive me. And then you can correct me in the comment section. Okay, League of Legends. I have tried playing this game some years back. It wasn't a very good experience. Yeah, I don't want to talk about that, but it wasn't a really good experience playing the game. I don't know much about it, really, in terms of the lore. All I remember is that I have tried playing it. I didn't really have a good time, and I kind of stopped with it. So I've known of its existence, you know, and I have tried playing it like once or twice, but I didn't really know the background behind League of Legends. And so this video that's been suggested to me is a good one, where I can delve into the lore instead of the gameplay of League of Legends. And yeah, if you want to check out the original video as well as Necrit's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. Let's start. 3, 2, 1, go.
The two most popular questions I get asked are: is the lore of League of Legends good? To which I say that we have a lore channel with over 500 videos now. I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't like the story. And I want to read the story, but I don't know where to start. And
That's me.
that is a very hard question to answer, because quite frankly, you can start anywhere you want. All of Riot's stories are written in a way where no matter what story you read, all of the information you need to understand it is somehow put in there. For
Yeah, but I don't have the time. I don't have the time, or maybe I should say I'm a bit lazy. So that's why I'm here. So thank you to Necrit, for compiling the story, the lore, in about 20 minutes. So yeah, thank you.
example, if you are interested in Ionia, you can read about any champion in any order you want. But some characters talk about certain events more than others. Some champions like Riven or Master Yi explain the Noxian chemical warfare, but they still at least mention the main battle at the Placidium. Other champions like Irelia or Karma explain the main battle at the Placidium, but they only hint at the chemical warfare. So basically, all the stories contain all the information you need, so you are never left confused. But I understand that simply telling you that you can read whatever you want is not a good answer. After all, League of Legends does have its main storyline. Despite there being more than 145 champions, all with their own unique stories, there is an overarching plotline that serves as the real story above all the others. And today, we will talk about exactly that. It wasn't an easy task, but I managed to put together the complete story of the main events that affected the universe of League of Legends. The way I did it was simple. I read a lot. All the information you're about to hear can be found in various stories and champion bios. But just like you have item descriptions or journal logs in other games, League is also hiding tiny pieces of information in places you wouldn't expect. You can actually get a lot of new hidden information by cross-referencing different champion stories. The way it works is that you usually have two champions from the other side of the world pointing at different mysteries. But when you realize that they are actually pointing at the same thing, you discover something massive. So with all of that said, keep in mind that the story of Runeterra can still get expanded upon. So in the future, some of the things we mentioned here may be already explained and things might be slightly different. In fact, I would say that about 15% of this video is sourced from those tiny pieces of information. However, what I'm about to show you right now is still the closest thing we can get to covering the entire storyline of League of Legends. But enough about unnecessary explanations. Finally, without further ado, let's get into the main storyline of League of Legends. Let's start at the very beginning. In the ages before time was even a concept, there was nothing. Or at least that's what the things inside the nothing thought. You see, since the beginning of time, there were always the Watchers. They are these nightmarish shapeless creatures that drifted in the absolute darkness of the universe. The thing is that the universe was so dark and empty, the Watchers themselves didn't even know they existed. There was nothing to see and nothing to feel.
They didn't know they existed? Wow. Okay.
There was nothing to show them that they actually lived. But that all changed when a tiny spark of light appeared in the empty cosmos. Suddenly, the Watchers realized they could see. Not only that, they realized that they are conscious beings with senses. Just like that, the spark of light woke up the Watchers from their eternal sleep.
I'm assuming that that spark of light is the Big Bang. A universe has just been born in the void. And the Watchers, as Nikrit calls them, have awakened from their slumber, realizing that they exist, realizing that they can see, and wow. So are they interested in controlling this light source, entering into this universe that's been created, or do they want to destroy it? Yeah, we're going to figure that out right now. Let's just continue. Sorry.
Naturally, the Watchers were quite annoyed at the tiny spark. Up until now, everything was peaceful and quiet. But this spark was blinding them, and it was ruining their slumber. When they drifted closer to inspect the light, the Watchers found out that the tiny spark was in fact a window into reality. Inside the reality, dragons of twilight, cosmic beings, and even death itself came to be, and they roamed around the empty space.
Hold on. Dragons of twilight, cosmic beings, and death. Okay. Which one is death here? I think it's the one in the middle.
Some, like Aurelian souls, spread light around. They left little pieces of themselves behind, which created stars. And with a little help from cosmic dust, planets formed around these stars. The absolute majority of these newborn worlds were empty, but sometimes there was life. The one planet that we know about is Runeterra. Now, Runeterra wasn't shaped by accident. The Celestials created this world with the use of the World Runes, hence the name Runeterra. But while that was happening, the Watchers observed it all from afar. It didn't take long before the Celestial beings became aware of them. They knew that something was overlooking their realm.
How many celestial beings are there? Are there only these two that we see right now? Or are there more of them and they're just not being shown? They didn't contribute in the creation of Runeterra. Yeah.
And they knew it was more powerful than anything in their reality. Now, don't take this information for granted. Technically, it should be considered a theory, but it is believed that the Celestials created Runeterra to host an army of powerful beings that would defend reality against the Watchers. This was never directly confirmed, but as you'll see from the rest of the story, that is highly likely what happened here.
Okay, so they created Runeterra so it could have beings that could defend their reality from the Watchers. And the Watchers are far more powerful than anything in their own reality. The celestial beings have no, they can't even fight against the Watchers because they're so powerful. Interesting. So what makes them think that their creations on Runeterra will be able to defeat the Watchers where they could not? Okay.
Anyway, the planet was created and the Celestials were paying close attention to its development. This is likely the time when Ornn, Anivia, Volibear and the Seal Sister appeared on Runeterra. It is theorized that the Celestials put them there to terraform the planet. The only thing that we get confirmed is that according to his legend, Ornn did actually shape the mountains of Freljord. However, after a mysterious disaster, the world runes that created this world were lost and scattered across the same planet. This is likely the reason why Runeterra is a magical world full of spirits.
They were lost and scattered. Was this deliberately done or was this by mistake somehow?
It is likely because the world runes slowly radiated magic into the surrounding lands. Millennia passed and life started blooming on Runeterra. First, it was Yordles, Animus and the Vastaya Shirei who started appearing on the ocean floor. But humans later joined them when they started covering the surface. This was very important to the Celestials. As mortals began emerging, the Celestials started fiddling with their lives. In fact, according to the Celestials, they had some kind of grand design for the mortals. The story specifically avoids telling us what the design was, but at least we know that living beings had a purpose. The evolution of life wasn't an accident. To strengthen the relationship between the Celestials and the mortals of Runeterra, the Celestials did two things. First, they created star constellations. These were images that served as messages to guide mortals to their intended purpose. It was an easy way to communicate with them. And second, the Celestials created Mount Targon. An interesting fact is that the mountain was literally ripped from the ground. It is as if someone pinched the earth and pulled it up. That's why it is much steeper than any other mountain. Also, you may notice that a lot of the mountain surface is covered in ice. Partially, it is because it is really cold up there. But it's also because as the mountain was being pulled up, it was also dragging lakes and rivers with it. So a lot of the ice is vertically frozen lakes stuck to the mountain.
Okay, alright. So the celestial beings communicate with their mortals on Runeterra using star signs, and they also created a mountain, Mount Targon, as a focal point of celestial magic and energy, and that's how the mortals would come on a pilgrimage, probably like a pilgrimage all the way up to the summit and communicate with their gods. Is that how it's going to be like? Okay. I don't know. Why don't they just come down to their level and talk to them? Why do all of this audacious displays of power? Why not just come down to the level of your creations and talk to them face to face? Let them hear your voice. Then they'll better understand what is expected of them. Instead of making star signs and pinching Runeterra to make one giant mountain or one steep mountain into the sky. I don't know if the plan is really going to work. It just doesn't sound like it's going to work here.
In the end, Mount Targon was a pretty successful invention. It served as a beacon of godly light and magic that attracted beings from all over the world. The more advanced mortals even formed their own civilization around its peak, which gave them a deeper connection with the celestial realm. And after some time, few of the most trusted individuals were elevated by the Celestials, specifically by the Celestial Aspects, creating the very first ascended beings. But the Celestials weren't...
Wait, so the Celestial Aspects are like what? The second tier, under the Celestial Beings? And then the Ascended ones are like the third tier of people who have been ascended from Runeterra to become part of them. Is that how it is? I'm not entirely sure. I understood him there. I'll have to just watch this video again, but I think that's how it goes. Like the first tier, that's where the celestial beings are, then the celestial aspects, and then the ascended beings. I think that's how it goes. If I'm wrong, guys, please in the comment section correct me. Yeah.
The only ones who are strengthening their control over the life on Runeterra. The Watchers were doing the same. They were carefully poking holes into reality, gathering any information about what the reality is, and more specifically, how can they get rid of it. The Celestials noticed these holes in realities that we know as Void Rifts, and they quickly moved to the next stage of controlling Runeterra. Now it was about this time when Aurelion Sol flew by and he noticed how much the life on Runeterra bloomed. And when he got closer, he noticed that all the tiny mortals looked up at him, and they worshipped him. Now this Aurelion didn't mind at all, and he often came back to visit Runeterra between his journeys into the dark. At one point, the mortal community up on the mountain, who were now known as the Targonians, offered Aurelion Sol a crown. Aurelion of course appreciated the gesture of gratitude, and he happily put it on.
Wait a minute, how big is this crown? Because, he's what do they call him? A dragon of twilight. He creates stars in the universe, so he must be massive. So you're telling me that Aurelion Sol can shrink himself down to the level of the mortals on Runestone, but Runeterra, sorry, not Runestone, Runeterra, and but the celestial beings can't do the same. What's so special about them? Why can't they come down to the level of their own creations, just like Aurelion Sol? Or unless maybe the people on top of Mount Targon created a giant crown for Aurelion to put on his head. Yeah, no, I don't think so.
But as he did that, he willingly chained himself to the planet, because the crown bound Aurelion to the will of the ascended Targonians. Aurelion Sol was now enslaved. We don't really know if it was just the Targonians who did this on their own, or if it was a plan of the celestial beings to enslave Aurelion Sol. But either way, the reason why Aurelion Sol was enslaved was because he was powerful enough to seal the Void Rifts. He was an effective weapon against the Grand Enemy.
So then why don't you just ask him for help? Instead of imprisoning him, tricking him with this crown, why do that? And why would the celestial beings allow this to occur? You know, I know that he's powerful enough to close the rifts, but doesn't he need to do his job in the rest of the universe, creating stars, you know, for planets to be created and orbit around those stars? I mean, isn't he one of the building blocks and foundations of this reality, this universe being created? So how could they imprison someone so important with something with such a big responsibility, you know, on Runeterra to be used as a weapon to close the rifts? The selfishness here is very scary.
Aurelion had a massive ego and he couldn't care less about the lives of mortals, so that's why he had to be forced to properly help the reality. At this point, the Watchers were at their limits. They wanted to learn more about Runeterra, but they were massive, and the rifts were tiny. The Watchers simply couldn't fit through. But it didn't take them too long to figure out that all they needed to do was to reach a mortal being and control it. If they corrupted something and sent it out, they could use it as a spy. So the way the Watchers gathered more information more effectively was by sending out horribly morphed beings to devour other beings and gather their information. The reason why information is so important to the Watchers is because they could easily use it as a weapon against Runeterra. The more they learn about how living beings are constructed and what living beings are the strongest, the more powerful Voidborn creatures they can create and release through the rifts.
Okay, so then their mission is to destroy Runeterra. So after destroying Runeterra, what's next? Are they going to be focusing on destroying the rest of the universe? Any other life forms across the universe? Or are they only specifically focusing on Runeterra because the celestial beings created this planet? They had much more interest in it, you know, in constructing it. I'm just wondering, what is their game plan? What is their ultimate plan after destroying Runeterra? I know they want to extinguish this reality, but maybe they're going about it a bit too small, you know, targeting one planet. I would expect them to like open or try to open a very large rift in space and then enter in there, like, you know, in their physical forms in this reality and destroy entire solar systems. I would expect that. But this seems to be a bit too small. I wonder, why are they focusing on such activities, you know, focusing on one planet?
But the Watchers realized that deconstructing and recreating beings is not the only way to win this war. Up in Freljord, they were playing a different game. They managed to slowly corrupt the mind of an individual that almost doomed the entire planet. Of course, we're talking about Lissandra. Lissandra was one of the three sisters that ruled Freljord, the second most powerful region at that time, right after Targon. The three sisters were Lissandra, Sorilda, and Avarosa. And all of them...
Okay, wait. Lissandra, Sorilda, and Avarosa, right? Okay.
them were drawn to celestial magic. Sorilda wanted to command the celestial heavens, but for her arrogance she lost her voice to the first twilight. Avarosa witnessed the twisting dark overlooking the world, and she was deafened by its complete emptiness. And Lissandra disrespected the wild magic of Runeterra, and as her punishment she was blinded by Volibear.
Wow. Wait, Volibear is one of the people who terraformed Runeterra into a livable planet, right? I think so. Right.
Together, one blind, one deaf and one mute, the three sisters ruled Freljord. Since she was blind, Lissandra had to rely on her hearing and delving into dreams. This meant that over time her hearing was so good she could hear what others could not, voices that echoed through the fabric of reality. Unfortunately, what she didn't know is that it was the Watchers who slowly corrupted her. Years passed and Lissandra now fully trusted the Watchers, but she didn't dare tell her sisters about them. In secret, Lissandra even struck a deal with the Watchers. The Watchers would give her people near immortality. This power of immortality is what created the Iceborn, who are basically Freljordians touched by the power of the Void. And in return, all the Watchers wanted was a safe place to rest when they visit their world.
A safe place to rest? Oh, wow. That has got to be one of the most obvious traps ever. It's a trap, lady. It's a trap.
To Lysandra, this was an offering she couldn't decline, and so she accepted the terms on her sister's behalf. More years later, when the Freljord was ready for the Watchers, without a warning, they started emerging from the abyss, revealing Lysandra's hidden allegiance. Unfortunately, their horrible twisted forms were not what Lysandra expected, and she realized the grave mistake she had made. She invited the end itself to their world. At this point, Lysandra had two options: let the world be consumed, or sacrifice everything she had ever had. And so, using her Iceborn powers, Lysandra managed to freeze everything and everyone who was present, killing Sorilda and Avarosa in the process. This is how a couple of Watchers got frozen in the Howling Abyss, while the rest escaped. After this defeat, the Watchers retreated, but not without new information.
Okay, so the Watchers are not... It's not just one single gigantic entity. It's actually individuals, you know? It's actually individuals of different personalities, of different origins, you know, but they're all Watchers. Okay. Because I thought the Watcher was just one single entity. But okay.
Many decades later, on the other side of the world, the war against the Void took another turn. Even though Targon had Aurelian Sol under their control, and they dealt with all the easily accessible rifts, sometimes they had to deal with smaller tears in reality that couldn't be accessed by a massive celestial dragon. That's why the Celestials had to nudge mortals to start a new empire. This time, more to the east. Under the guidance of the Celestials, the new Shuriman Empire began constructing a massive disk in Nerimazeth. Using this disk, they attempted to channel celestial powers into their chosen soldiers. But the experiment failed and the disk was destroyed. Later, they made another attempt at this more to the east. This time they constructed a much bigger sun disk that would create super soldiers capable of fighting back the Void. These soldiers would get many different names: God Warriors, Golden Warriors, Sunborn, but we know them as Shuriman Ascended. Here we need to mention three very important individuals that play a big role in this war. Azir became the greatest leader of the Empire and the Grand Leader of the Ascended. He was loved by pretty much everyone, but keep in mind that he was still a human. He became Ascended much later. Nasus became the wisest of the Ascended. His knowledge of war tactics would become irreplaceable. And the third important character is Setaka. She became the war commander of the Ascended host, and she was the deadliest of all the Ascended. As the Empire was growing and the number of their God Warriors was expanding, other nations became suppressed. And some even feared the unstoppable army of Shurima. One such
I'm surprised. I'm surprised that the celestial beings would allow something like this to occur on Runeterra, where there would be one empire that is favored by them, that is propped up by them, that is given all of this information, knowledge, maybe even technology in how to create these super soldiers, you know, by them, you know, supported by them so much. But then they don't do the same thing for the other empires or kingdoms or you know, other species of life on the planet. You know, why are they doing that? Why are they othering everybody else but favoring so much on the Siriman Empire, you know, and the Siriman Ascended people? I mean, this will just create divisions. It will cause potential wars, and this kind of conflict won't help you when you want your creations to fight against the Watchers, because they'll be so busy fighting amongst each other, you know, fighting for survival or fighting to conquer the entire continent. So why do that? Why favor one people or one empire and then leave the rest out in the cold? Okay, celestial beings, you know what's best for your people, I guess.
Each nation was the kingdom of Igathia. Their leader, the infamous Mage King, had enough of cowering before their might, so he went to war against Azir. Now the Mage King knew
You see?
his small kingdom of mages would not stand a chance against the Ascended. So he called upon a power greater than what the Sandys could offer. He called upon the Void. During the battle for Icathia, a massive void rift consumed the kingdom, and after hundreds of years of observing, the Watchers had another chance to silence all reality. Using their previously gathered knowledge, the Watchers corrupted everything they touched, and they created new void-born abomination the world had never seen.
So I'm guessing after the kingdom of Icathia, made this pact with the Shadow, the entire kingdom ceases to exist. Because now the Shadows are invading, they've consumed all life in the kingdom, and now they've become these monstrosities that we see here in the image. You see, but this is the issue that I'm talking about with the celestial beings. Why are they favoriting one empire and leaving the rest out in the cold? If you want your creations to fight against the Shadows, you can't have them being divided and being some being favored more than the others. Because it will just create competition, it will create animosity, and then, it's just going to collapse. Your plan will just collapse at the seams because you've allowed this to occur. Yeah.
This was a war on a scale nobody expected. But after many sacrifices, including Setaka, who died while being torn apart by these abominations, the Ascended won, but at a great cost. Not only was the rift in Icathia so big that even today it is still not fully sealed, but most of those who survived were permanently marked by the Void.
So even with the power of, what's his name again, Aurelian Sol, he can't close the rift in the kingdom of Icathia. Wow. Wow, this is just terrible.
Before this battle, the Watchers have never even seen a God Warrior before, so they weren't able to fully corrupt anyone. But their mark was enough to leave a tiny whispering voice in everyone's mind. Thankfully, even though their war commander Setaka was dead, Azir and Nasus remained untouched by the Void, and they kept all the Void-touched warriors under control. Of course, it didn't stay that way forever. Zerath, Azir's slave, who was also his best friend and a guide, saw him as a naive emperor. Everyone saw Azir as a kind-hearted leader, but there were still countless slaves dying under his rule. Now, secretly, Azir was planning to free all the slaves on the day of his ascension. It was meant to be a big surprise to everyone, including Zerath. But when the day arrived, Zerath became jealous of the power Azir would get. So Zerath pushed Azir from the ascension sunlight, and he drained all the power of the Sun Disk himself. This led to Azir's death and the destruction of the capital city. But what's
Interesting. Okay, so Zerath, I think maybe he was under the control of the Watchers in some way. He must have been corrupted by them. Or maybe this is just him and his actions, being jealous of Azir and, what he's going to become, an ascended being. So I'm just wondering, is he still alive, Zerath? Is he still alive after consuming all of that celestial energy? Because I know that Azir is dead and the city was destroyed in the after the result of Zerath absorbing all of that energy. So I'm just wondering whether is he still alive? Is he still somewhere around on the planet, or is he up there with the celestial beings? Yeah.
Worse, it also left all the Void-touched Ascended without a leader to keep them under control. The only one who could do something about this was Nasus. He was wise, but more importantly, he was not touched by the Void. However, keeping so many corrupted Ascended in line was an impossible task even for him. And eventually it was so dangerous Nasus had to go into hiding. This meant that the Ascended warriors, now without a leader or purpose, and with tingling Void whispers in their minds, went absolutely insane. Instead of being seen as godly beings, the Ascended slowly turned into brutal warlords. They fought each other, sometimes to gain more power, sometimes to settle their differences. Eventually, they figured out how to control the whispers in their mind, and they created a brand new kind of magic. Blood magic, which they used to reshape and improve their bodies.
Okay. Alright. Blood magic. Yeah, but the plans that the celestial beings had for their mortals, clearly it has come to naught. It has unraveled at the seams. And I don't know if they're ever going to, get things back together again, like Humpty Dumpty back together again. I just don't see it. Yeah.
Soon, the Ascended warriors were known as the Darkin. and this era would become known as the Great Darkin War. During these times, the entire world was in conflict, as the Darkin conquered as much land for themselves as they could. While all of this was happening, the Celestials watched it all. Their warriors who were supposed to fight back the Void were now fighting each other, and they were more dangerous to the mortals than the Watchers themselves. So the Celestials had to remove them. The simplest way to do so was to send the aspect of Twilight to Shurima. There she would teach mortals how to seal the Darkin inside their weapons. It took a couple of years, but in the end, the surviving Shurimans together with the Targonian aspect sealed all the remaining Darkin. And finally, the world saw peace again. For a while anyway. If we look back at what just happened...
Okay, so... Sorry, Nikrit. But the Darkin have been sealed in weapons. They kind of remind me of... what is that anime called again? Bleach. You know the Soul Reaper blades? They also have like a personality and existence inside the blades. So yeah, they're kind of like Zanpakutos. I think that's how I can understand what just happened here with the Darkin, you know? Yeah, interesting.
This entire Shuriman experiment was a massive loss for the Celestials. They wanted to have an army to fight the Void, but instead they ended up with the biggest Void Rift they have ever seen. So the Celestials needed an entirely new plan.
Okay, let's hope with your new plan you don't favorite one group of people and then you other everybody else. Let's hope you don't do that. Let's hope that you've learned from that mistake, and let's hope that you also come down to your creations level. Go down there and talk to them personally. You know, don't be looking at them up in the cosmos like you're watching television. No, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. You have to come down to them and talk to them and tell them what is expected of them. You know, what are you guys supposed to be doing? And make sure that you talk to everybody. Don't just talk to one empire or one kingdom and say that you guys are the ones. We're choosing you guys to have all of this power, to have all of this knowledge. No, it must be everybody.
But before they could figure something out, mortals took their fate into their own hands. Possibly in the worst way imaginable. You see, now that the Darkin were gone and the world was left in utter ruins, even the simplest man could become a king by simply scavenging whatever he could. And that's exactly what came next. The Age of Men. The first to step up was Mordekaiser. He was a brutal warlord king who easily swept across Valoran and conquered the entire continent. Only when the rest of the world united against him was his dark reign ended. Fast forward a couple of years and the world was simply at war again. But this war was unlike any other. Remember when the Celestials lost the world runes at the beginning of the story? Well, mortals began uncovering them. Random mages around the world held stones with the power to create worlds. It was pretty much the equivalent to holding a nuke. This sounds scary, but everything was fine as long as people were just threatening to fire the nukes.
No. Even if you're just threatening to fire them, no. This is scary. This is very, very scary.
But once the first nuke was fired, the second followed, and then the third, and the fourth. While the Celestials were trying to come up with a new plan, mortals literally set the world on fire. This conflict became known as the Rune Wars. Sometimes Celestials managed to calm down some of the conflicts. Usually this was done with the help of the Targonian aspects, or with the help of Bard. Bard is a Celestial who specifically comes down on Runeterra to take powerful magical items away from mortals, just so they wouldn't use them in another war. The last time we saw Bard was during the battle for Bard Mountain, in Ionia, where he took away this magical egg. Later Celestials even tried to create more constellations to show people more messages. But at this point mortal minds were too primitive, and they usually thought it was signs of doom. But sometimes even mortals helped. On the Blessed Isles there was a cult of mages dedicated to collecting the world runes. They did it to hide them away from other mortals.
How many of these world runes are there? Really, I mean... Whew.
But even that didn't help. In the end, during this era, the most powerful nations were wiped out. In the east, only Noxus remained, after they wiped out their neighbors. Yes, this circle you see here is actually a crater. There was supposed to be another nation here. And in the west, Demacia was built as a purely anti-magic nation. We know that there are a couple of nations between them, for example the Arbormar Kingdom, but we don't know much else. This is where the modern lore of League of Legends begins. So if we have a look at the world right now, the Watchers are constantly looking for a way to invade Runeterra because they are annoyed by its existence. The north is hiding a massive void rift frozen beneath the Holding Abyss. The south has a massive void rift still open there, not big enough to fit a Watcher through, but big enough to spawn a void army. The western and eastern Valoran is at war, the entire Shuriman continent is mostly in ruins, and the Blessed Isles blew up. Only Ionia is somewhat decently holding it together, but Noxus had to screw them up too. Remember when I mentioned that the Celestials had mortals as a part of a bigger design? Again, the Celestials likely created mortal beings to use them all as soldiers in this galactic war. Well, whatever purpose mortals were supposed to have, it is far beyond the Celestial control now.
Yeah, Runeterra has now entered into the Dark Age, if I can say that. So many civilizations either destroyed or left distraught, you know. They don't even understand what the star signs anymore in the night sky. They just think that there are messages of doom, and probably even the mountain of Mount Targon. Mount Targon, probably it's also being seen as a cursed place, as a place that's filled with evil, and you know, the people who live there, I'm not sure if there's anyone still living up there, or have they all maybe ascended into celestial aspects. I'm not sure, but yeah, things are just bad. They're just bad all around.
So now you may be wondering, what happens next? Well, the main story can go a number of ways. We can learn more about the world runes through the vault in Demacia, or maybe the Watchers will try to get through the rift in the north, or the Darkin will try to make a comeback and the Celestials will have to deal with them again. Riot created a playground where they can do a lot of different things. Just remember, it really doesn't matter where you begin to read. Every champion and every story makes sense on its own, so you can't get lost. If you ask me, start with the stories found on Silas's page. He's a great champion for entering the new lore. He will get you right into the newest conflict. And right after that, maybe have a look at Udyr. I think he will surprise you too. But no matter what you decide to do, just have fun and go for whatever you are interested in. The days of bad lore are gone, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Hey, did you know that we have social media and Twitch where we talk about other League facts and stories? And did you know that we have neat mugs and shirts too? The links to all of that will be below. And as always, thank you, come again.
Okay, guys, that's it with Story of League of Legends explained by Nikrit. And also thank you to Wilfred Clarity for giving me this suggestion. It's been very good, you know, listening to Nikrit, you know, condensing but also further explaining the lore and the history of League of Legends. And you know how everything has begun with the Watchers, you know, slumbering in their darkness, not even knowing that they exist until the Big Bang occurred, and a new universe was created out of the darkness. And you know how the celestial beings, the dragons of Twilight, I think it's only one though, Adriel's soul. I'm not sure if there's any other dragons out there, but yeah, you know, the dragons creating stars, the celestial beings creating planets, and yeah, you know, this specific planet, Runeterra, you know, having all of this attention by the celestial beings, you know, making sure that the mortals on the planet are able to defend this universe, defend this reality from the void and from the Watchers themselves, you know. And how I think there were two heavily handed on the development of the mortals on Runeterra. I think they made a mistake by focusing too much on them. They should have just left them to their own devices, you know, let them develop naturally without your input, and maybe things might have been a bit different. But also the fact that they, you know, had their favorites, they had their favorite children, those that they would give all their knowledge to, their magical abilities, you know, giving them the knowledge to ascend while leaving everybody else out in the cold. I think that was a mistake on their part, you know. And also allowing the Dragonians to imprison Aldrian Aurelion Sol, you know. I still think that was a wrong thing to do. I think maybe the Celestial Beings should have first tried to convince Aurelion Sol about, you know, helping out to defend their reality from what's going on with the Watchers, you know. Because this would also affect him. If the Watchers came into their universe, not only would they destroy the Celestial Beings and everyone else, but they would also destroy Aurelion Sol. So, you know, if he was convinced that, you know, this is the right thing to do, that you should be here to help out to seal off these breaches, then I'm sure that he would. I'm sure that he would. But yeah, the lore is vast. It's deep. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I've written here. I'm gonna watch this video again, and I'm also going to be focusing on the trailers, or should I say cinematics, for League of Legends. I think I'm going to be starting next week with my reactions to the League of Legends cinematics and trailers. And yeah, you'll find it here. Yeah, every Wednesday. Every Wednesday, I'm going to be reacting to at least 4 trailers. I saw on the playlist that like there was at least 164 videos or something, somewhere around there. So yeah, I'm going to be stuck with League of Legends for some time. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you guys there as well. Remember, if you want to check out the original video as well as Nick Crit's YouTube channel, the links are in the description below. If you like my reaction, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Click on the notification bell if you want to be up to date with my latest videos. And I'll see you guys next week, Wednesday. Okay? Good night.